What's up everyone and welcome back to Reload Reacts episode 43. My name is Trey and today we are going to look through r/PettyRevenge, the subreddit for those smaller victories over the people who have wronged them. This first post is by Lucky H's. Try to hit me, I'll pretend to key your car. I was riding my bike today on a road that is somewhere between a side road and a connecting road. The speed limit is 35, but it rarely gets up that fast at the time I was riding on it. I generally follow all traffic laws, ride with a helmet, etc., but I do try to be cognizant and non-obstructive of traffic. Where I enter this road, traffic is usually going about the speed limit or slightly slower. About a mile past that though, it slows down significantly. It terminates in a busier intersection, so there's usually a long line of cars going 5 to 10 miles per hour after that. Shortly before reaching the slowed cars, an old lady laid on her horn as she passed me, and passed obnoxiously close to. I could have kicked her car, she was so close. Normally, I'd just take a place behind her car and follow the flow of traffic to my destination, which is right before the intersection. However, the lady was only a few cars ahead, so I rode up the shoulder to get next to her. I got her attention and held up my keys, then made it look like I was keying her car. She started to flip out as I flipped her off and rode into the sunset. I was on an e-bike and she was stuck in traffic, so there's no way she was catching up. I wouldn't actually damage someone's property like that, who needs that sort of exposure, but I do hope she took some time after that to evaluate her actions. The top comment reads, "This is perfection. I agree, this is absolute peak." This next post is from My Cat Sits Like People. Hotel screwed me over, so I actively discouraged tourists from booking there. I had a bad experience with a particular hotel that is part of a larger chain. They lost my reservation, couldn't give me the room I deserved, gave me a lesser room, charged my credit card twice, and at the previous rate when the rate on that day was cheaper, I managed to get one of the charges dropped, but I am salty about having to overpay for a CP room, and their corporate customer service was even worse. I work in a tourist adjacent position, and at least once a week, I'm asked for recommendations about local accommodations. We have a list and I make a point to tell them not to book at the one I loathe. I have no intention of ever stopping. Yes, it's petty, and yes, it gives me great satisfaction every time. The top comment reads, "Businesses have no idea how much ill will is costing them. I hope it is enough for them to get new management and better customer service." This next post is by Deeply Danglin. Dealing with condo board and landlord. Generally, I work out of town. 15 years, I've been renting a condo and basically live in a hotel. About 10 years, I noticed some weather damage around the condo, but every year the landlord raised the rent, so I didn't tell him or the board. My rent is up nearly $1,300 since I started, but now the natural damage to the place I barely use is going to really hurt them. Foundation, rot in attic, water spots. Yearly they do checks and I do my best to cover up the problems, and soon I'll be moving and I wish I could see what their bill is going to be. Thanks for raising the rent for a place I barely used, greedy Fs. This next post is by _cash- Mayonnaise Karen. This happened quite a few years ago, but it still makes me laugh. When I was in high school, I worked at a very popular fast food restaurant. I don't care what anyone says about fast food, it's not an easy job. Franchise owners and management made it quite clear that we were easily replaceable. Customers often lost their S on us over things that were completely out of our control. While I felt like a baller making $10 an hour, looking back, I have no idea how the adults that worked with me were surviving on that kind of paycheck. Shift managers made an extra 50 cents an hour, which to me would not make it worth it, but anyways, my favourite one to work for was named Cindy. She had a pretty hard life, and I was amazed by how kind she was to everyone, despite how badly she was treated. Cindy took a lot of pride in her work, just an all-around good person. I was in the kitchen and Cindy was taking orders on the drive-thru. A woman, Karen, ordered a couple chicken sandwiches, and was already being nasty over the intercom. When she got to the window, she asked Cindy for mayo packets. Cindy explained there was a 20-cent charge for each packet, which, by the way, none of us wanted to charge anyone for packets, but they were counted, so giving you free mayo wouldn't be worth losing our jobs. Karen threw a tantrum and started berating Cindy, then demanded that we take back the sandwiches and put extra mayo on them so she wouldn't have to pay extra. I was absolutely delighted. I slathered at least an inch of mayonnaise on each side of those effing chicken burgers. Just sad I didn't get to watch her bite into it. The top comment reads, "Lol, I think everyone should work in one of 3 job areas at least once in their life. Fast food, retail, and a server. I've done 2. I'm a manager for an apartment complex that is low income, 19 years now. I get S when rent goes up by $5. I don't make the rules, HUD does. Here's their number." This next post is by Horace or Doris. "So we've paid your rent, have we? I was renting a 6-bed house with 8 others for 2 years. We were all in our 20s, earning good money and partying hard. The landlord didn't want to deal with us individually, so it was decided that one person had to be responsible for paying rent for us all. The person who paid the rent, Dave, also paid the initial deposit. Dave had rich parents, so he always had spare money to help out, and everyone agreed that he was a great bloke. Dave promised to pay the rent for the last month for us all if we cleaned the place up, €600, when the contract ended. The house wasn't trashed, but needed a bit of deep cleaning / decorating and a few repairs to get the deposit back. It was 6 months of rent of €3,600, which was a lot in the 1980s, so we agreed. Unfortunately for Dave, he was away when the landlord came to do an initial inspection to let us know what we needed to happen for the deposit to be returned, and in conversation, it turned out that the rent was being split 8 ways, not 9. Dave had been living there rent-free for 2 years without us knowing. We had a massive party over a long weekend, drinks were spilled, and a food fight broke out on more than one occasion. We didn't put anything out for the dustmen for 2 weeks, cleaned nothing, and all moved out the day before Dave got back, 1 day before handover. Surprisingly, he managed to get €400 of the deposit back and tried to make us pay the outstanding money we owed him. He gave up after threats of police involvement if he tried to pursue it. I found out years later that our actions totally wrecked his plan to put a deposit down on the house he was saving up our money for. This next post is by Persephone Love. Neighbor dishes out hell, receives it paid back with interest. Been living next to R for 20 years. First, it started with me coming home to find he had hooked up an extension cord to one of my exterior outlets and was stealing my electricity. I have a friend who is an electrician, so the cord was unhooked before I could call the cops on him. I had my electrician pal come over and wire up that receptacle to 240 something volts. I never heard any smoke or loud pop / zaps, but I hope he had been stealing my electricity to power something really, really expensive. He never plugged an extension cord into any of my outlets again. He also has frequent, weird house guests that stay for days / months. I think he lures them over with a free place to stay and possibly drugs and alcohol. We got tired of them wandering over and knocking on our door, always interrupting us and asking for free Wi-Fi. So finally we set up a fake open Wi-Fi network that looks like free Wi-Fi, but when you try to connect to the internet you get redirected and you can only view the infamous "never gonna give you up" music video, but nothing else. So you basically get rickrolled. We have a photo of the singer of that video in a frame with LED lights behind his eyes, and when someone tries to access it, his eyes light up, so we know when they're doing it. The rickroll fake Wi-Fi network seems to have stopped the weird people showing up asking to use our Wi-Fi. He also used to cut through the back part of my yard all the time, and one time, his dog ran into our yard and attacked my husband while we were doing yard work, so animal control got an immediate call, and he had to fence in his backyard, which he did a horrible job on, and several times his dog has gotten loose, and I caught him waltzing through my backyard walking after it, like it was no issue. Last year I expanded our chain link fence all the way out to the property line so he can't cut through our yard anymore and his dog is better contained. I had built a shed back there and was tired of that being outside the fence anyway. I got a survey and found his bushes were encroaching on my property by quite a large area, so those got trimmed back too. I also put up privacy stats in the fence, and I don't know why that bothered him so much, but after living for years with his ugly broken down Bronco parked on his lawn and overhanging the property line in the front, I'm totally at peace with him being ticked off by my new fence, while I get the full use of my property now. I also had the new fence expansion put in with a 3 to 4 inch gap at the bottom, and our property is raised up above his. For some reason when these houses were built, his is dug down by 4 to 5 feet. So as his invasive junk diseased elm tree drops all manner of leaves, dead, diseased branches and seeds in my yard, rather than quietly pick it all up like I used to, I just pull out my leaf blower and blow it all under the fence and back into his yard. I xeriscape my yard, no lawn, and some years back when I was trimming back my larger perennials, the wind picked up some of the trimmings and they blew onto his lawn. I found them all thrown unceremoniously up onto my porch. I think of this and smile every time I return all the leaves, dead branches and elm seeds from his tree, and I blow them right onto his lawn. Larger branches that I used to put through our big chipper shredder, nope, tossed over the fence and on top of his lawn for him to deal with. And he never trims that tree. It is very large and mostly dead and drops a lot of dead branches constantly. He also burns his fireplace in the summer and burns his trash rather than pay for trash service, which smells horrible and always gives me migraines. Yesterday we stained a bunch of wood. The stains are letting off a ton of vapors in the hot weather today, and I have some big, very powerful fans outside blowing the vapors over in his direction. One of the other neighbors told me he keyed her car once, and when he finally got rid of the Bronco and got himself a new shiny Subaru Impreza, but he was too cheap to pay for full coverage, and some lady broadsided him during a light change, was deemed at fault for the accident, he said/she said. And several weeks later the car came back drivable but mostly smashed. The deployed airbags still kinda hanging down on the sides. Karma gets credit for that one though. We get along with everyone else in the neighborhood but this guy. I literally gave away 300 plus pounds of fruit off of my trees last year. Peaches, plums, apricots, it was a bumper crop. We've got a snowblower and we help clear sidewalks for a lot of the folks too. And I've given away tons of perennials and loaned out garden tools. We're generally overly helpful to everyone except R. When it comes to him, I am a petty babe in total control of herself. He could have had amazing neighbours if he'd even been slightly considerate and been less of a nuisance and not bullied us and stolen from us. Sucks to suck, I guess. Edit to add. Thanks for the idea of aiming the chipper shredder exhaust towards his lawn. It's the big one from Harbour Freight Tools, and if I take the bag off, I bet that thing will shoot micro wood particles 10 plus feet easily, and lots of them. I'll save that as the last nuclear option. Thanks as well for the discussion of the trash burning as a health hazard. I close the windows and thankfully have an arsenal of air purifiers I run on full blast when he does it. He's breathing these fumes up close and personal. Thinking about this, I'm realizing if I can, I should take out a life insurance policy on him so I can outlive him and get paid for doing so. That would be pro-revenge for all the migraines. Also, correction in the first paragraph, cord wasn't unhooked by me. I would have called the cops immediately if I'd found it that way. My ex, who I'd originally bought the house with, unhooked it and told me about it when I got home, so away went my chance for criminal charges, unfortunately. Which would have been a better and safer option than a booby-trapped electrical outlet, which for safety purposes, I am not recommending. And I think that's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories in r/PettyRevenge. Let me know what you'd like to listen to next in the comment section below, and also hit that subscribe button because I post new Reddit content every single day. There are 2 videos on the screen, one of which is for the most recent video and another is for the video the YouTube algorithm thinks you'll want to watch next. My name is Trey, this was Reload Reacts, and I will see you in the next video.